All right, the final example today, simplifying an expression with powers. And the thing I want you to remember about powers is this. The powers affect a single object only. They only affect the number, unless parentheses are involved. So, for example, if I have the absolute value of let's say negative 4 in parentheses squared, negative 4 not in parentheses squared, negative 4 in parentheses squared. Let's look at those three situations. All right? This top one, since the power is outside the parentheses, it's affecting the entire contents of the parentheses, the sign and the number. So this negative 4 in parentheses squared means negative 4 is being multiplied by itself. The sign and the number are both being squared. Two negatives make a positive. Positive 16 is the result. When there are no parentheses involved, this power is only affecting the 4, not the minus sign. So the minus sign occurs, then 4 is being multiplied by 4. That becomes negative 16. This one, negative 4 in parentheses squared. Again, there's parentheses, there's a square, there's a minus sign, but what's inside the parentheses is just the positive 4. So the minus sign is outside the parentheses. 4 is being multiplied by itself. That's also negative 16. And just in case it happens, because the book can sometimes do this, I can't remember it happening, but I wouldn't put it past them. Sneaky book people. Suppose they do something like that. A negative 4 in parentheses squared. All right? Very much like that one, right? They look very similar. The difference is the position of the 2 in relation to the parentheses. Here the 2 is outside the parentheses, affecting the contents of the parentheses. Here it's inside the parentheses. All right? So this 2 is only affecting the 4, not the minus sign. It's actually exactly like that, just the parentheses are around the whole problem. So if I put parentheses around the whole problem, the minus sign is there. 4 is being multiplied by 4. That's all that's being squared in that part. So it's actually negative 16 for the contents of the parentheses. If the book happens to do something like that, that's how you handle it. All right? I don't expect you guys to have to go through this step to evaluate powers, but if you're having troubles getting powers evaluated correctly, that's the step you can go through to fix that problem until you get to the point where you're more comfortable with it, at which point, again, I go directly from the power expression to the answer. All right? So if we focus on this problem here, this problem has 3 pieces. And one thing you can do when you're evaluating expressions, if you want to make them simpler, get these big, ugly expressions, if you focus on the pieces of the problem, we have negative 2 cubed followed by a minus sign. We have negative 2 squared followed by a minus sign. We have negative 2 squared again, and that's it. Pluses and minuses separate pieces, because the very last step of order of operations is to add and subtract, right? So if you're going along and you got this big mess of a problem, there's a plus sign. Nothing after the plus sign is going to affect what happened before the plus sign. So if you want to break a problem, a bigger problem, into steps, into pieces, that's how you do it. Ugly stuff, minus. Ugly stuff, minus ugly stuff. All right? So if you see pluses and minuses, each one of those little pieces represents a part of the problem that can be evaluated independently of everything else with no problem. So if we take a look at negative 2 in parentheses cubed, what's being cubed?
The negative.
The negative and the 2, right? So that's a total of 3 negatives, which makes a negative result. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Second piece, minus 2 squared. What's being squared? The 2, not the minus sign, right? So it's still subtraction. 2 times 2 is 4. All right, the last piece, what's being squared? The negative and the 2. So 2 negatives makes a positive. 2 times 2 is 4. That's positive 4. It's being subtracted. All right? So again, break it into pieces. Get each piece simplified as much as possible. Then you're left with an addition or subtraction problem. In this case, everything's negative, so I simply add up everything. 8 plus 4 plus 4 is 16. Everything's negative, so the answer is negative. Right? Again, I'm going to tell you right now, the evaluation problems in tonight's assignment even are more challenging than this. There will be some basic like this, but they become more challenging. They will become the most challenging, what you already knew how to do last year, within the first 3 or 4 lessons. They just will. So if you're struggling with evaluating expressions, come see me about it. I might refer you back to videos from Algebra 1 where I went through it in more detail. Maybe you can watch those videos. Or if I can just sit down with you, if there's this little simple mistake you're making, we can fix it. If it's more complicated, I might have you rewatch some of the videos from last year where I went into more depth about evaluation of expressions. Because again, there's an assumption by the author of the book and myself that you learned stuff last year, you still know how to do it. Okay? If that assumption's wrong, we need to correct you on an individual basis. I don't want to penalize people who still remember how to do everything with a bunch of me talking about how to do stuff that you already know how to do. So if you don't know how to do it, come see me. If you do know how to do it, have at it.